if I'm a betting man, that's who I'm betting on them taking, because I think the way this works is you talk yourself into it in the process for
Yeah.
if you're, and I think Glenn and Muji will squint hard to see what they want to see out of Dante Moore. If that's,
Squint
you
hard.
know,
That's a
I,
good one. That's a good one. That's a good one.
I think they'll talk themselves into it, because in the end, I don't think this is a conscious thing, but I think they're gonna feel this sense of urgency that they know there's a lot of pressure on them going into this year, and I don't think they're gonna want to delay the quarterback move to 2027.
Hello, welcome to Gangs All Here. We're back in studio. Frankie and Ryan. We're going to be joined by Kaz here in a second. Today is Tuesday, January 13th. We're here to discuss the Jets quarterback options heading into this offseason through the draft and potentially through free agency, maybe even trade as well. But before we get to any of that, as always, I'll start with Frankie. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Today is the start of when the Jets are finally going to start building a winner. They're gonna we're gonna talk about it, but I think this is the start to a long offseason, and this is hopefully the beginning of something good, man. I'm being optimistic today, okay?
All right, I like that you're being optimistic because you do have the nickname Tanky V on Twitter right now. But let's bring in our Jets beat writer, Brian Costello, because we can't do a Gangs All Here episode without Kaz. Kaz, how you doing? How's the beginning of the offseason treated you thus far?
Good. I was in Foxborough Sunday, so that's always exciting. Took me 90 minutes to get out off of beautiful Route 1 up there in Foxborough. But other than that, I'm doing good.
Yeah, you got to see. Look, that game was a little bit, in my opinion, boring. It stunk that the Chargers couldn't really get into the end zone. But you got to see a winning football team this year, so I guess that was fun, right?
I was hoping to see a good game, honestly, because I haven't seen many good games this year. So I was excited to see a good football game, and it was not a good football game at all. But I said one of the amazing things, guys, was I saw a lot of people up there, whether it's reporters or people that work for the teams or even some players I saw that I know, and everyone is fascinated by the 2025 Jets and the interception thing, the Garrett Wilson leading the team in receiving. I heard about Isaiah Williams being MVP from people. Like, they are like, this was a very special bad team, because mostly people don't really care when I show up in January, but everyone was like very excited to talk to me about the Jets. So take that for what it's worth.
Kaz, I told Ryan this many of times. It was a memorable year. We will remember this team forever, and that's a good thing. Life is about memories, isn't it? So we'll remember these guys.
I don't know if I want to remember this year, to be honest with you. Look, you know what's fascinating about this, Kaz, is that we have these moments in the offseason. You get to reflect on how this first year for Aaron Glenn went. And I do want to highlight something for Gang Sounds Off, where our colleague Eric Victor got an interview with Mike Tannenbaum. Now, Mike Tannenbaum obviously runs the 33rd team. The 33rd team is the organization that Woody Johnson helped get the hires of Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn. And we asked Mike Tannenbaum about his thoughts on Aaron Glenn, who was his decision to help Woody Johnson hire him, how he would grade Aaron Glenn's first season with the New York Jets. Here's what he had to say.
If you were to grade the two on an individual basis, what would you grade out Glenn and Mugi?
I would give him a grade of incomplete, because to me, like, what you're trying to do is, where I give the Jets a ton of credit, is to try to reset this franchise, for the long term. They took some really big decisions this year that, hey, maybe they could have won 4 games or 5 games or 6 games if they had kept the Quinn Williams or Sauce Scott. We'll never know. But I think what they did from putting themselves in a position of cap draft choices is really good. The result wasn't where they wanted to be this year, but 6 short weeks when we're talking about NFL free agency, this roster is going to look really different, and I think that's going to include the quarterback. To me, that's where, if you're a Jet fan, you have to be excited and say, like, look, we're trying to do this right long term. They didn't try to put Band-Aids on it. I respect that, despite the record not being where they wanted it to be.
So, look, that's one way of saying incomplete grade for Mr. Aaron Glenn. How would you, Kaz, react to what Tannenbaum is saying, considering he was on the hiring committee, if you want to word it that way, of bringing Aaron Glenn into the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that weighs heavily into the evaluation of what Mike has to say. Is he's got a vested interest in this. He was paid a handsome sum of money to help find these two guys. And so, I think he's going to be biased about it. And as someone who's occasionally asked to do grades, incomplete is a nice way to avoid giving a grade when you don't want to give the actual grade, right? Incomplete is a great, way out. So Mike's a lawyer. That was some lawyer speak there. And I also think like it's tough, right? Because he asked for grades on Muji and Glenn, and Mike kind of put them together. And we've talked about this before, you can't totally separate them, but what we saw on the field, from a schematic standpoint, from a decision-making standpoint, I don't put on Muji, the big ticket decisions. Yeah, they both get points for those, or demerits for those, however you see it. But, it's tough. But I think Mike was very, very much a lawyer in that answer.
Yeah, I hear you, and I agree, because I think the fact that he spun it immediately to now the offseason and the capital they have and the cap space they have, and the quarterback is what's going to get Jets fans excited. It's the selling of hope again and this vision that they have. But when the question is, how do you grade him for the first season? We all agree it was not a good season. It was, a lot of people characterize it as a disastrous season. It didn't go by any means the way we thought it would at the beginning of the year. And the fact that they finished 3-14, started 0-7, it speaks to, that's on Aaron Glenn's ledger. And now you have to think about where you're going into year 2 with Aaron Glenn, and do you have trust in him? Frankie, do you feel like there's anything that you could spin looking forward besides the actual offseason itself of Aaron Glenn heading into year 2?
Well, I'll say this before I answer that. If the Jets had won 9 or 10 games, would Mike Tannenbaum have would he have responded the same way, that it was incomplete because it was too early? I'm just curious as to that. But I'll say this to your question. Listen, the draft capital is real, and Aaron Glenn's job, having final sign off on these moves, that's big time. Those are assets that can really flip your franchise upside down, which this franchise desperately needs to be flipped upside down, man. We're at the bottom of the barrel now, but with 5 first-rounders and 3 second-round picks over the next 2 years, Aaron Glenn's responsible for that. So you can rip him as much as you want on the coaching side, and we have on our shows. We have, guys. I've spoken about the X's and O's and how this team just doesn't seem to ever have a leg up when it comes to scheme. But the 5 first-rounders over the next 2 years are real. And Aaron Glenn, he had final sign-off, I'm sure, when it came to trading Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, 2 fan favorites that really, I'm sure Woody Johnson didn't want to let out the door either. They had just signed Sauce to a big deal. Quinnen was more likely that he would have been, out the door. But to get them both out the door and get 3 first-rounders and another second, it shows that Aaron Glenn did have a long-term plan here. He does have enough rope to be able to make moves like that, and that is something that you can look forward to. With that being said, this coaching staff really needs to be upgraded, because I don't believe in Glenn as a head coach right now. I don't know how you can. They need to get some real experts at the quarterback position, as a running backs coach, as a I like Sean Jefferson, but you get the point. They need positional coaches around these guys that are going to be able to coach these guys up at a supreme level, because I don't think Aaron Glenn wants to be this, head coach that's going to be in these meetings scheming up game plans. I don't think he wants to do that. He wants to be the rah-rah guy, and he wants to put together a roster of players that fit his personality, and we'll see if he does that.
We'll see if he does it. I will say, and this is something I read in Kaz's Sports Plus column today about Aaron Glenn's first year and his remarks after the season when we talked about his postseason press conference, admitting that he was learning a lot in his first year on the job, and that there was a lot of things that he promises to get better at. But the one thing that you noted, Kaz, that I thought was really important was he got the 2 big things wrong in evaluating of who his quarterback was going to be in Justin Fields and who his defensive coordinator was going to be in Steve Wilks, and he had to move off those things rather quickly. Now, do you give him more credit in the fact that he moved off them quickly and acknowledged that they were mistakes? Or at the same time, it's like, do I trust you to to actually hire the right people and also pick the right quarterback?
Yeah, it's both, Ryan, really. I mean, I give him credit that he wasn't, we talked about him being stubborn, I think, on recent episode. I didn't think he was stubborn with those moves. I thought he moved off of them. Um, you know, Steve Wilkes, I thought he'd probably wait till the end of the season. He didn't. He moved after Jacksonville because I think he sensed he had to do that with the players. And then with Fields, you could argue he could have moved off earlier. There were some complications there with Tyrod's health and a Thursday night game, but I thought it wasn't like he waited too long to move off of him. Uh, y- I don't get too caught up in like, oh my God, he's not going to get it right the next time because he got it wrong this time. There's plenty of instances where people picked wrong and then they got it right the next time. So I don't write him off like that. He can't get it right. He can't make the defense coordinator choice or quarterback choice right this time. But yeah, it's clearly a negative for him in this first season is that he got those two big decisions wrong. And, when you're searching for things he did right, Banjo was a good hire. After that, it's tough to know. I mean, I think, we talk about Engstrand, but he's still an unknown. And it's hard to say anything else. And even these trades, they may turn out great and they may turn out terrible, right? Like if Quinnen Williams goes on and has 5 great seasons for the Cowboys and, they win a Super Bowl or something and Quinnen's a big part of that, or Sauce, he takes the next step and he's great in Indianapolis. I mean, you might feel different about these if they don't get the picks right. So I'm not sure we can grade those yet. But my point in the column too, Ryan, is just I thought for sure last year they were going to hire somebody with experience for one of the two jobs. And, you're watching Vrabel Sunday night. And yes, he got Drake May, but like the guy knows what he's doing. Like you just watch it and it's like he knows what he's doing. He's really good in game. He's really confident when like you just I don't know. He exudes confidence and like like because he's been there and he's done it, and so that. And so as all these teams search for coaches right now, I'm just looking back. I'm still surprised that the Jets went with 2 first-time guys in the 2 jobs.
2 first-time guys, a first-time offensive coordinator. Yeah, it's curious that they went that route. And you highlighted it too. It's like they just got off of 2 first-timers in Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, and it just it's a repetition. And then when you see guys like Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson winning a playoff game, Liam Cohen leading the Jaguars to a great season, it's like the Jets really maybe missed out on a great hire potentially last year, and I don't know. Confidence has never been lower in this front office and head coaching staff and the head coach and this coaching staff, in my opinion, in the history of the Jets. Like it's an all-time low. I don't know if they're going to be able to fix it. I know what you're going to say, Adam Gase, Todd Bowles, but like this was really rough on us as fans to watch and have to go through.
Yeah, you're too young to remember Kotite.
I am.
Right?
I was only 1 year old during Kotite.
Yeah, I was a young man myself at that time, but not that young.
How old were you?
Kotite was.
Young stud Kaz over there.
I was like 19, 20 when Kotite was the coach, and there was not much confidence in Richie Kotite at that point. Although he had some success with the Eagles, he was not a first timer. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of confidence back then, and that's why they brought in Parcells basically to just reshape the entire organization.
Kaz, you made a great point a few shows ago about these 5 first-rounders that I'm always talking about, these 5 first-rounders. And Kaz said something that was spot on. Look at 2021 and 2022. You can get 4 of the 5 picks right. AVT was right. Sauce was right. Garrett was right. Jermaine was right. Where were you wrong? With Zach Wilson.
Yeah, number 2.
And that's all it comes down to. You can nail all of these picks. If you don't nail the quarterback, these guys are in trouble. So that's probably the most important. That is the most important variable in Aaron Glenn being successful here, isn't it?
100%. It's going to be everything. And we're going to start now talking about the quarterback options, Kaz. I do want to start with the Indiana versus Oregon game. Your takeaways from Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore. I'm sure you were tuned in just like everyone else was watching, especially Jets fans, considering these are considered the top 2 quarterbacks in this upcoming draft. we're still waiting to hear if Dante Moore, we should hear by tomorrow whether or not he will declare for this upcoming draft or if he'll go back to Oregon for another year. We know we got the news that Dylan Raiola had transferred officially to Oregon from Nebraska. So people are trying to piece it together, but also Raiola might sit behind Dante Moore if he does come back. So what were your takeaways from Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore's college football playoff game?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't look good for Dante Moore. I don't think I'm breaking news there. Like, we didn't inspire a lot of confidence. I don't think you can just go off of one game, and the evaluation will be a lot greater than that. It's about his whole college body of work, and then what he does in the process, in the combine and pro day and all that stuff. If he does come out, but yeah, you can't feel good if you're. I think Jets fans were hoping to go into that game and walk out 100% sure that was the guy that they wanted to take at number 2. I don't think anyone can say that right now. So it's going to be an interesting process. I thought Mendoza looks great. I think he's the number 1 pick. I'd be shocked if that changed between now and April. He looks like the guy. So I think we're gonna have to see how it plays out after that.
You have to play that what if game right now. If the Jets had not won that Atlanta Falcons game, I don't know if the strength of schedule would have worked.
Would the Raiders have beaten the Chiefs in the last game of the season?
It's another great question.
Would they have tried? Yeah. So I know you can play that game, but there's a lot of what ifs in that scenario.
Well, I would say this before we get into if Dante Moore doesn't come out. From your viewing, Frankie, of what Dante Moore did in that game, and as this season has gone on, what are your thoughts about him as a quarterback prospect?
Well, I'll say this: he fits in perfectly with the Jets. First pass of the game's a pick 6. Then he has another.
Now, everyone thought I would have taken the cheap joke at the expense of the Jets.
Waiting
Frankie does it.
I was waiting.
I'm being nice and reserved today. Not taking
are.
shots. And Frankie takes the. Frankie just takes the cheap shot.
He's not a fan of Dante Moore. I can say that. That's for sure.
Listen, I'll say this about Dante Moore: he has a long way to go before he is ready to be the starting quarterback of an NFL team. That's all I'm gonna say. Is it
20 starts in college?
Yeah,
20 starts in college is scary.
Yeah, totally. If you look at that list, I think Rich
Samini had tweeted.
Yeah, Rich put out.
Yeah, Cam Newton was the only one. Interesting stat about Cam Newton, by the way. I'm pretty sure this is true. His first 2 games, he threw for 400 yards passing. He never threw for 400 yards again. Now, what is that to say? When the tape is out on these rookie quarterbacks that don't have a lot of experience, they might flash their first year, like C.J. Stroud. They flash. When the tape is out and they know what your tendencies are as these defensive coordinators, they will make life hell for you. And you have to adapt. You have to reinvent yourself. CJ's kind of going through that now. You might have a new OC, which they have in Houston. So Dante Moore is not ready to handle all that comes with being an NFL starting quarterback. With that said, if he went somewhere and developed for a year or a year and a half, I think he has all the traits that you're looking for. Now, his size is being questioned. Is he 6'3"? That's another thing. People are speculating he's 6'1.5". If he measures out at 6'1.5", he's not going to burn you with that 40 time. He might run like a 4.8. His stock might drop a little bit more than people think. So I know the assumption here is he's the sure thing number 2 pick. I'm not so sure about that. But I think for the Jets' sake, listen, we're rolling. We're taking a massive risk. We're rolling the dice, a 12-sided dice when it comes to this guy being able to come here and be the savior for Aaron Glenn in year 1. If you want to sell me on him being a project quarterback here and we're going to bring in some veterans to show him the ropes and to compete in that room, I'll buy that. But don't sell me like they tried to sell us with Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
And I hate saying this, and I'm getting killed on social media. I don't really care because I believe it. He reminds me of Zach Wilson in terms of their body of work as a prospect coming into the NFL. They are very, very similar. Now, if Zach had time to sit, maybe he would have been okay. I don't know the answer to that question.
I mean,
Nobody
I think
does.
Dante's a little bit bigger than Zach, obviously.
Maybe.
The traits maybe are similar in what you're saying. But I think the key thing is what you and Cos both just said. It's the low amount of starts that you've had. But Dante has played better competition than what Zach Wilson played in his collegiate career.
Absolutely.
Cos, it's the $50 million question, if we're being honest. do the Jets invest that second pick no matter what in a quarterback spot? But if Dante Moore doesn't come out, there's really no other quarterback being touted at that 2 spot, right? So could you potentially see them, if Dante Moore doesn't come out and doesn't declare, they're going to go defense with that second pick?
Well, like, look, the defense freaking stinks too. So it's not like they don't need defense. So yeah, like I look at this, they need a ton of players this offseason through free agency and the draft. So yeah, I think you probably are going defense there, Ryan. Just looking at how the rankings shake out from the draft people. I'm not pretending I watched every college game this season, but it seems like Reese from Ohio State is pretty much considered the guy. I don't know. I've watched a few Ohio State games, and the safety is incredible. The Reese doesn't jump off the screen to me. Downs just like every time I watch it, I'm like, this guy's awesome. But I know you're not allowed to take a safety number 2 overall. So
I get flashbacks of Jamal Adams right there too. So it's like,
yeah, but how about flashbacks of Kyle Hamilton? Like I remember we talked about should the Jets take Kyle Hamilton at 4 when they took Sauce? Like would they have been better off taking Kyle Hamilton than Sauce?
oh yeah.
If Kyle Hamilton didn't have injuries, he is already one of the top defensive players.
So I don't know if Downs is that guy, but like he could be. He looks pretty freaking good when I watch Ohio State. But yeah, I think to answer your question, most likely defense was number 2, and then you probably take a flyer on a quarterback, either later in the first round or in the second round, something like that.
Well, we did get word that Trinidad Chambliss was denied his 6th year of eligibility at Ole Miss. We know he's appealing that decision, and we'll see where that lands with him. I think he's an intriguing quarterback prospect as well, considering what he did against Georgia. That always makes your eyes pop on the national stage. It's like, holy crap, this guy's picking apart Georgia's defense. He's got a lot of pre-snap reads. You look at him post-snap as well. He's quick to snap, making decisions. He's got a good arm, it looks like. So that guy interests me a lot. I do wonder, Kaz, a name that I had heard recently, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this too. Nussmeier from LSU. He had a bad year this year, but this was a kid that was thought of last year as a potential first-round quarterback. He decided to return to school to go to LSU again. He had a bad year. He had dealt with a lot of injuries, but this is a guy who grew up in a a quarterback family. His dad's a football coach. He's been groomed to be a quarterback pretty much his entire life. Is that a name that potentially the Jets could go route with a Nussmeier, a Chambliss, those type of prospects if a Dante Moore just doesn't work out at number 2?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where Nussmeier would fall. Like, where he is second round, third round, what people think. He obviously was hyped up coming into this year and didn't live up to it. So I think he'd have to do some work there. I've heard Chambliss is day 3. I've heard people saying. I don't know if he can change people's minds during the process, and that's also an interesting thing. He's gonna appeal, but like, how long do you appeal for? Because at some point he's got to get ready for the draft if he's going to enter the draft, and Ole Miss is going to have to move on and get another quarterback. So through the transfer portal, so that's the timing of that is pretty interesting. And then Ty Simpson, you haven't mentioned, Ryan, but to me he's the number 3 guy in this whole thing. And I watched a lot of Alabama this year, and I liked Simpson really a lot until about Halloween. And then all of a sudden it was like, I don't know what happened, but he did not look good at the end of the season. But the beginning of the year, I thought he was the best decision maker out of all of them. I thought he just looked like he really knew how to play the position. He didn't have all the physical tools that Mendoza and Moore have, but I thought he just looked like a really smart quarterback. Sort of reminded me of like Pennington a little bit, like that type of mold. But it didn't look good at the end, so I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, the thing with Alabama, I was looking into it. Their running game was not good this year, and that really set their offense back a ton. And you look at Simpson was trying to force it a little bit, and his mechanics got a little bit out of whack. And he, similar to what Kaz Pennington, Drew Brees kind of style of quarterback, where they make their bread and butter in the intermediate and underneath game. And if you're not extremely accurate all the time, you don't really have the other things happening, like a Trinidad Chambliss. And I was going to throw this in there. If he goes to the combine and runs, let's say, a 4.40, 4.42, you're going to see his stock go up around at least. So just look out for that if he comes out, because there's speculation that he can run in that low 4.4 range. And when you see a quarterback with that arm running in a low 4.4 with this class, you start convincing yourself on other things there and what-if scenarios with who this kid could be. So, that'll be very interesting to see. But I have Chambliss and Simpson right now, like basically equal in terms of for us. I'm saying for the Jets.
Yeah. I mean, the reason we're asking these things, Kaz, is right. Like it all depends on Dante Moore. Like, I don't know. Are you willing to pencil him in at 2 if he does declare tomorrow for the Jets? Like, that's the guy the Jets have to take a flyer on no matter what at 2. Or do you think there's real conversations that Glenn and Muji have to have where it's like, I don't know if we like this guy as much as everyone else does. And we really, like you said, we know we need a ton of infusion of talent and playmakers on the defensive side of the ball and also probably at the wide receiver position too. Do we value that more and take a late round flyer on one of these quarterbacks that we're talking about?
I don't think you say they have to take him because obviously there's concerns there. He's not a no-brainer like we talked about. But if I'm a betting man, that's who I'm betting on them taking, because I think the way this works is you talk yourself into it in the process for if you're, and I think Glenn and Muji will squint hard to see what they want to see out of Dante Moore.
Squint hard. That's a good one. That's a good one.
I think they'll talk themselves into it because in the end, I don't think this is a conscious thing, but I think they're gonna feel this sense of urgency that they know there's a lot of pressure on them going into this year. And I don't think they're going to want to delay the quarterback move to 2027. So I just have this feeling that they're going to end up at Dante Moore when we get there.
Kaz, when Muji said they're going to look to exhaust all resources at quarterback, do you think free agency, someone like Malik Willis, is actually a realistic option here?
So my question with Malik Willis is really from his perspective of like, you put yourself in his shoes, right? Like, I think he's probably looking for somewhere that's going to tell him he's going to be the guy, right? I don't think he's going to want to go somewhere where they're considering drafting a quarterback. And remember, that decision is going to come on March, whenever free agency starts, 12th, 11th, 13th, whatever it is this year in early March. We're not going to know who the Jets are drafting at number 2 at that point. So let's say Dante Moore is in the draft and we're all debating still, are they going to take Dante Moore? If you're Malik Willis, are you coming to the Jets who might take that quarterback and then you end up like Kirk Cousins, where they take Michael Penix? Or are you going to go to, say, Arizona, who's drafting 3rd, and it feels like, okay, they might if the top 2 picks are quarterbacks, maybe you go there, or you go somewhere else to a quarterback needy team that's not drafting 1st or 2nd in this draft. So and I don't know what the valuation is on Malik Willis too. Like, that's a tricky one. Like, he hasn't played much football. Obviously, he brings some stuff to the table, but like, are you paying him? What kind of contract is he getting? I don't know.
They were saying something like $50 million, around that range, a little bit more than maybe what we had paid Fields, just because the upside, there's more upside with him. But he does come from LaFleur's system that they have a ton of receivers out there. They have a ton of talent and a good offensive line. So he's coming from a well-oiled machine offensively. That's the other conversation we also had with Mac Jones, Kaz. Like, I don't know how much Kyle Shanahan has to do with his success. Obviously it does, but they're saying around $50 million, Kaz, for Willis, a little bit more than what Fields got. Total, maybe $35 million guaranteed, something like that.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Well,
he's pretty much an unknown.
Yeah, he's an unknown, but also at the same time, the Jets have really no time to waste here, right, guys? Like, they have to take swings, whether it be in free agency or the draft here, to get this quarterback position hopefully heading in the right direction. Speaking of the free agency market, like, their names are not inspiring if you're looking at it if you're a Jets fan. It's Daniel Jones, it's Aaron Rodgers, it's Russell Wilson, Marcus Mariota.
Rodgers? You down, bro?
No.
Rodgers available?
Zach Wilson, Tyrod Taylor, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Jimmy Garoppolo, Mitchell Trubisky, Case Keenum, Trey Lance, Carson Wentz, Brandon Allen, Josh Johnson, Malik Willis, Kyle Allen, Philip Rivers, if you want to bring him in, Teddy Bridgewater, Jeff Driscoll, Sam Ellinger. I mean, this is the names, Gardner Minshew. Like, do any of those names inspire you and say, yeah, you know what, the Jets can sign that guy to bring him in to start a couple games for them this year?
No, they're not inspired. Like, I saw Mitch Trubisky carve up a defense a couple weeks ago, though. So,
he didn't look half
maybe
bad.
Mitch Trubisky.
I mean,
No, like, look, you're in the same spot you were in last year. If
Yeah.
you decide Dante Moore's not the guy, where it's like you're going to be picking the best of a lot of bad options, and that's where you're going to be at. I would add, like, Kyler Murray. Do you trade for him? What's the Kirk Cousins situation, right? Like, so there's guys that aren't on your free agent list who might be available in the next couple of months. But again, yeah, I'm not sure any of them are very inspiring.
so you talk about the trade route. I also try to look ahead too, like who's a free agent in a year if they don't get locked up to an extension. But I don't know if the teams will be willing to part with these guys yet. So you look at like a Baker Mayfield. Bryce Young just got his 5th-year option picked up. C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Davis Mills, Jacoby Brissett, Jarrett Stidham, Jameis Winston.
Is Spencer Rattler on that list?
I
I like me some Spencer Rattler. I'm not saying he's going to save the day here, but I think he's good enough.
He's still on his rookie contract, I think.
Still his
right?
rookie
Yeah,
contract.
he has
That's
one more
correct.
year, though?
Yeah. No, he's not free agent
No,
till then.
never mind. Okay.
So looking at, like, again, trade options, is there a name that potentially we're not even thinking about? I threw the Joe Burrow thing out there earlier this year. You were like, no, that's crazy. That'll never happen. But is there a quarterback you think in your mind that, and this happens every year, mind you. I think about the Stafford Goff trade. I think about, those type of things that happen. Is there a quarterback out there that you never thought, hey, this guy's going to get traded. He's up for availability because the team just wants to move on from him. Is that a potential?
I guess I don't see anyone out there, but the staff. It doesn't happen every year, Ryan. I think it's the Stafford Goff thing was pretty unique that they decided to swap quarterbacks there. But yeah, I mean the
Russell Wilson
Kirk
got
Cousins.
traded.
Kirk Cousins was a surprise one. Yeah, Russell Wilson was a surprise one. Yeah, there have been surprises through the years. Yeah, I don't see any of them coming right now, but I guess you wouldn't see them coming. That's why they're surprised. But I don't see anyone who's just kind of disenchanted with their quarterback right now. I think had the Ravens not fired Harbaugh, would we say, hey, maybe they move Lamar, right? Because it seemed like there was friction there, but they picked the quarterback. They didn't pick the coach. So I think you can cross him off the list. I think anyone going there to be the coach now is going to coach Lamar Jackson. But I can't think of anywhere else where I'm like, that doesn't seem to be working very well with a good quarterback. So it's very hard to get them. They don't become available, and that obviously there's a reason why.
I've read some stuff with Dak Prescott. If the Cowboys move off of Pickens,
his contract
as a free agent, like they may have another bad year. They might blow that up with Schottenheimer.
The problem with that is, and I've done the research on that one, Frankie.
We spoke about this.
You can't trade for him because the contract balloons up to almost $100 million cap hit.
But they have the out in 28, right?
They have the out in 28, but its contract is basically untradeable. If that makes sense for you guys, like
what if
it's 100?
What if the Eagles say we're moving Jalen Hurts?
So that's the other one I heard too, Kaz. So I've heard that too.
Like, no, it is crazy.
It's funny. I think about what Aaron Glenn said about this offense. What'd he say? The Eagles won a Super Bowl. The Eagles won a Super Bowl with quarterback that might not be the best quarterback ever, but they ran the hell out of the football. Would he?
I don't know what his contract situation is. I haven't looked at that. I'm just throwing it out there. Of like, it's obviously there's a lot of talk in Philly right now. The fans want Sirianni gone pretty bad, but what if Howie sits down and says, I don't think the coach is the problem. I think the quarterback's the problem.
Yeah, so same thing with Jalen Hurts. If he's moved, he has $117 million dead money hit on the Eagles. So it's the same thing with the Cowboys. It was $129 million for dead. It's not going to happen unless you rework the deal. So I mean, it just
you'd have to, obviously.
Right. So I just those contracts are really hard to trade for right now. And that's why I'm just asking, like, you, Kaz, and Frankie. It's like, is there a quarterback we're not talking about that could be traded or moved off of that that maybe the Jets have enough assets, because they do. They have more assets than anyone else to make a move like that. I just don't know if anyone's ever going to move off a quarterback and say, yeah, we'll take your picks, guys. Like, we're done with this quarterback.
I think the Jets need to make sure that quarterback room is an actual competition. I don't think the Jets should go into this offseason identifying one quarterback, and that's the guy. bring in 2 or 3 and let them compete, and best man wins kind of thing. I mean, we did it with Fields. We brought in Fields. He was the only player, arguably, that didn't have competition behind him. And it kind of blew up in our face to the point that at the end of the year, he didn't even want to play. And I'm just assuming that, obviously, but it seemed that way. They have to make that room an actual competition. They can't say, oh, this is your team, we're going to give you the keys. Unless it's Joe Burrow or Dak or one of these, Jalen Hurts. Then, yes, they can have all the keys and they're the guy. They have to prove it, man. Fields didn't prove it to just get that job.
No, I know.
We spoke about this. Yeah.
I agree. I agree with the premise, Frankie, and I thought it was weird that they just named Fields the starter right away. But it is trickier to have a competition at quarterback than other spots, right? Because there's only one of them out in the field, right?
Yeah.
So if you're having a defensive tackle competition, you can rotate through. There's one of them. So is one guy getting the first team reps? Is one guy getting the second team reps? Like I remember the summer with Teddy Bridgewater and Sam. McCown was kind of on the side at that point, but Bridgewater was out there playing with guys who were not going to be on the team. And it was like, this is kind of tough for him to do something. And also, if you want that quarterback to be the leader, it's kind of hard to establish yourself as a leader if you're not the starter. But so it's tricky, but I understand the premise. And I do think there are arguments that a competition is good.
Now, my last question about evaluating the quarterback position and what type of quarterback this Jets team wants, Kaz. If they want to truly copy what the Detroit Lions and Ben Johnson did with his offense there, it's a quarterback like Jared Goff, who is not the most mobile quarterback, but is somewhat of a statue in that pocket where he can read defenses pre and post snap. He can beat you with his arm. Maybe he's a little bit mobile, but not that mobile, not like a Justin Fields. But it's someone like that, built like that. Am I reading into how Tanner Engstrand would like his ideal quarterback to look like?
Yeah, I think Tanner Engstrand has to make the system fit who the best guy that they can get. So I don't think it's like, oh, you know what, like Kyler Murray's available, Marcus Mariota's available, and Kyle Allen's available. We're going to go with Kyle Allen because he's more of a in the pocket quarterback. Like that doesn't make sense to me. Like if Tanner Engstrand is good at this job, he'll tailor the offense to the quarterback that he gets. So I think ideally, Ryan, what you're saying is probably true. Like I think look at Baltimore switching from Flacco to Lamar. Like they realized what they had, and they're like, okay, we better design an offense to take advantage of this guy because he's a freak. So I think that's what you have to do if you're Engstrand and Glenn.
Smart head coach.
Oh yeah. The other thing the Jets,
who's a free agent right now.
Yeah. The other thing the Jets need to do, guys. The other big thing.
It's brutal, Kaz. Real quick.
Who clearly wants a quarterback, Ryan, though, right? Like everything we read is he's studying Dart, he's studying Ward, he's studying all the quarterbacks. So I think how long would his quarterback study take with the Jets? Bailey Zappi. Can you give me the Bailey Zappi cut up? Okay.
Do we have any highlights, guys? Yes.
Can we give me the Brady Cook cut up? Okay. All right. Call the Giants next. I get it. I get the premise, but there's no way that John Harbaugh would pick the Jets.
No, he wouldn't. But let me ask you this: Is Aaron Glenn? How about this? Is Aaron Glenn?
Here we go.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm saying. Is Aaron Glenn better than any of the coaching candidates that are currently out there? Stefanski, Harbaugh, McCarthy. These are names that are out there. McDaniel. Like these are names that have shown a lot more in this game to be good or somewhat good NFL head coaches.
Maybe better than the Lions defensive coordinator. He's taking head coaching jobs.
Is Aaron Glenn better than any of those guys right now?
Right now, no. Those guys are proven. They've proven that they can do the job. So no. But I mean, it doesn't mean he's not going to get better. He can get better, Ryan. So maybe you'll feel better about him in a year.
I'll say this.
That's a huge maybe, Kaz. I'm just going to say that right now. It's a huge maybe.
Did you see the head coaching availability list like almost a month ago, how much different it was than it is now? Saleh was the top of the list there. And then you had, Arthur Smith was like third on that list. Now, forget it. You had all this activity. Mike Tomlin might be another guy that's back on that list now.
What's to say, though? Like, let's say they find a rookie quarterback that they draft, whether it's at 2 at Dante Moore or later in the draft, that you show signs, hey, this guy maybe is something there. Or, and you could bring in competition in 2027 if you do want to use one of those first-round picks and draft another quarterback. So be it. What's to stop the Jets from repeating what happened to the Giants, where you draft a quarterback at 2 if it's Dante Moore, and Aaron Glenn gets off to a really rough start, and he doesn't win a bunch of football games because they're playing the AFC West and the NFC North next year, which is not an easy schedule whatsoever. And he gets off to a tough start, and he gets fired midseason or at the end of the season, and now you have this young quarterback having to start over with another head coach. How do the Jets avoid that, I guess, is what the question is, Kaz.
They don't. There's no way to avoid it, but I do think it's a little different. Dable was in year 4, right? So I think this is the argument I've made of why they wouldn't wait till 27 to do it, is because they're going to realize if you do this in 2027 and you get off to an 0-7 start, that's when you get fired, like Dable or Callahan was only in year 2.
Callahan in
Tennessee.
year 2. That's what it is.
But they had a new GM. It was a little different there. The GM didn't hire him, so it was a little different. But yeah, I mean, there's no way to guarantee it. But also, guys, I don't think it's the end of the world for the quarterback, right? Caleb Williams looks like he's okay. Looks like he's going to survive that they fired Matt Eberflus in his first season. You go through the list.
Lawrence,
Guys can
look at the year he had.
Overcome. Drake May seems to be doing okay without Gerard Mayo, right? So it's not the end of the world. Yeah. I don't think you want to change coordinators for guys' first 4 years, like that kind of thing. But if you make a change after his first year, they'll survive and they'll adapt. So I don't think you have to worry about that so much. But yeah, it's a huge trend. I mean, these guys who take first-round quarterbacks tend to get fired, after either during or after the first year. It's been rough.
The problem with this, though, is I don't have Dante Moore even close to what I had Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, Drake May at pre-draft, or even, considering them as a prospect. I just don't. So he's really going to need even another year, maybe, if that were to happen. You're not just going to insert him and then he'll figure it out.
Dante?
I'm talking about Dante would probably need a third year. He's going to be delayed a bit versus a Trevor Lawrence or Caleb.
Dante Moore, they have to sign a very good veteran that could start day one.
They absolutely
that's got to be it, Kaz. That's got to be the mentality. If we're taking Dante Moore, he declares tomorrow. Yeah. That's our guy. We're penciling it at 2. We have to get a starting quarterback that can sit in front of him and teach him how to be a quarterback and get this position right. I just hope they don't repeat what their predecessors did, because the Jets have repeated a lot of the same, where it's first-time head coach, first-time GM, first-time offensive coordinator, and we're just going to completely reset and do this again with the number 2 overall pick and rush him. You just can't do it.
Can I ask you guys a question? Do you think the best plan for the Jets is this, right? Do not draft Dante Moore second. Draft BPA. Of which, if you look at these receivers, I sent you some stuff on Jordan Tyson. Yeah. Jordan Tyson's phenomenal. If he didn't have an injury history to him, he'd be he'd be the easy number 2 pick. He's phenomenal, but he's had injuries. Carnell Tate's interesting. Mekhi Levin, whatever. But this draft is stacked in terms of receiving talent. It really is. The more I'm looking at it, it's you'll see as the process goes. It was much better than last year. Draft some receivers. Get some quality players on defense. Wait until next year and let Glenn prove.
He said they're not doing that, though.
Let Glenn prove that he can at least coach without this prospect quarterback. Show that he could do stuff elsewhere. You don't have to judge him completely on the win-losses, but which he is going to be judged on ultimately. But
judged on win-losses.
Because if you don't have a quarterback, in 26,
But who's playing your quarterback this year then? Who's playing quarterback in your scenario?
I have no idea. But
that's the problem.
Is it Kyler Murray?
I don't know. The thing is, though, we're going to force something, and then it's going to backfire, and then we're going to have to wait another year. And it's like we're just digging ourselves a deeper hole. I think we need to slow down.
Well, I think
wait till the quarterback's right for us in 27. Build up the pieces to it. Get another receiver, some defensive guys, and if Glenn can make it look interesting, or not look completely out to lunch, maybe he could stick around another year. I'm just saying. I don't know, guys. It's just we're gonna force this thing, and then we know how this story's gonna go. It happens all the time, you know. We're gonna force the quarterback. He's gonna throw him in week 7. Yeah. He's gonna stink. And then,
but that's the lever he has in the insurance.
Here's another problem. Here's another problem with the premise, though, Frankie. Yeah. Right. So you're saying build up this year.
Yeah.
Go through this year. Draft the quarterback in 27. Right.
Yeah.
So where do you have to be in the 2027 draft to get a good quarterback?
Well, I think at that point, listen, we'll have our 3 first-rounders. So, I mean, you should have some.
So you're trading up?
Yeah, I would trade up depending upon who's available. I think next year's class will have some decent, even like a Lenora Sellers you could trade up. I mean, there's some guys saying will be there. Arch.
If you have a good draft position in 2027, you're probably not arguing to keep Aaron Glenn as the coach, right? Like,
yeah, that's true.
People want him to fire right now. So if he goes 5-12 and you get the number 7 pick, are you keeping him? You know, he's now got 8 wins in 2 years.
I wouldn't, but I wouldn't.
So it's hard if you're Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji sitting here, like, they're human beings. They're gonna think about their job security. It's gonna whether it's subconscious or not, they're gonna be thinking about it. So I think it's tough to say push it to 2027 unless they really come back and say there's nothing there. And, you know, we'll see. Maybe Muji can work something like we're talking about. Maybe there's somebody we don't see on the board right now and Muji can figure it out and, you know, get a decent quarterback in here.
Yep. Look, it's going to be a fascinating discussion all off season long, I should say, for the Jets is how they address this quarterback position. They started it off yesterday by getting Bailey Zappi, so we'll see what happens going from here.
You love that move.
Dude, it's just comical.
You were a fan of him when he went on this little 2-game run.
I was, but it's comical. It's comical.
He likes Bailey Zappi, Kaz, this guy here.
Look, he's tweeting out JETS Jets gifts. Like, he's already trying to win over the Jets fans for us, so. But look, we're gonna follow this all along. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I'm sure we'll have some reaction to that with Dante Moore, whether or not he comes out and declares. And that'll really determine, I think, where the Jets are going with this quarterback position is what happens tomorrow. Kaz, we appreciate you, as always, for hopping on with us, giving us all your analysis. We'll follow your coverage throughout the offseason, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon. Frankie, I appreciate you, buddy. And as always, go Jets.